All right, hey everybody, Coach Lee here. I got a lot of videos to make. I'm really behind, but we had racing seasons on us, and the data is changing. Right, it's race data. It's not training-based training data anymore. So this is pretty cool. Before we jump into this video, let me talk about two things. First, yes, my mustache. A lot of people are trying to get me to go to Ragbri this year, and so if I go to Ragbri, if I can find someone to take care of my beautiful little dog for a week in July, then I really need to represent with a mustache. That's the only way you can do Ragbri. Second, today, March 13th, 2003, Andy Coggan, Dr. Andy Coggan, you know, the gentleman, the doctor, the scientist that's behind so much of what we talk about in this data world, in training world. He launched back on March 13, 2003, his whole theory of TSS and intensity factor, two concepts we'll talk about today. So today is the 20th anniversary of this huge thing that just launched, you know, careers, launched industries, just really forever changed the endurance world. We'll never be the same because of 20 years ago today. So, of course, I had to make a video. So, Trade Zone Crit. This is a crit up in Maryland. Technically, it's a circuit race. I believe everybody calls it a crit. But technically, it's a circuit race. It's a little bit longer than a crit. A series of races up in Maryland. And, you know, teams show up, the best of the best. It's really a premier racing crit. So it's fun to look at the data. I've had several athletes do this crit, but the data that I got in today, I was looking at and I said, you know, I just need to make a video on this. So let's jump into the data. So one of the first things I look at when I look at crit data is this chart right here. So what is this chart right here? So basically this is the DFRC chart, the Dynamic Functional Reserve Capacity chart in WKO5. And one of the great things about this chart is that it models the work that you do above threshold. So there's the amount of work that you can do below threshold, then there's the amount of work that you can do above threshold. So once you start going above threshold, that blue line starts ticking down. When you go back below threshold, that line starts to go up. Go above threshold, the line starts to come back down again. And so when you're looking at data from a cyclocross race or a crit race or, you know, the trade zone crit, then you're going to see a lot of movement in that blue line. So let's look at this. So right off the bat, right, boom, gun goes off. Then they're just digging as hard as they can. It's just a sprint right off the bat. And they keep digging, digging, digging. They relax a little bit, comes up, digging, 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 digging. The first thing that I do is when I look at any of this data, I read the comments. That's the very first thing that I do. I don't even look at any data. So the ride comes to me, the data comes to me. And Training Peaks, first thing I do is look at the comments. And so he had great comments about team strategy, the team that he was working with, where, you know, they got nipped and things like this and, you know, things that were happening. I still need to talk to him about this particular race because I really want to know what happened right here. So usually when I see a line this big or that's digging this deep in a crit race, that's either the athlete trying to establish a break or catch up to a break. And so I'm very curious to what that is. And so I assumed that the break happened right here in this race. He finished with the front group, and so this was probably the break right here. And then as you can see, they relaxed a little bit and then just dug all the way to the end. And, you know, it was for all the glory right there at the end. So that's a great chart to look at. I like to look at that chart first. I just like to see the suffering. I just want to see how I look at that and it's as if I'm watching it on TV. I can just see all the moves. I can see the covers. In the data, I can just see so much. The next thing I like to look at is the heart rate. You know, what did his cardiovascular system do? So a crit race, you're either full gas or relaxed, full gas or relaxed. So I really like to look at that cardiovascular system to see how he did. And well, what can we tell? That this is his heart rate data right here. And so the line, this is his interval trend line or his race trend line for the entire race. Now, if this was you just going out for an easy ride and then, sprinting to the town sign at the end, you would see the line would be just this dramatic swing up. But his line, he showed up as we planned, which is in, his workout. He has race warm up openers, all that great stuff. He showed up warm. He was hot and ready to go for this race, which is absolutely perfect. When I saw that, my heart smiled, right? So this was just great. His heart did just a fascinating, amazing thing. This data right here, this is his power data, and this is his interval trend line. And again, if you were just, starting off easy, go out for a 20-mile ride and then race to the, town limit sprint sign or whatever, that line would show a dramatic rise in power. But his power, right off the gun, boom, and then it stayed the whole entire way, right? There was only a 6-watt change in power in the entire time. So his interval trend line for the day in terms of his power was perfect. This blue line is a great line. There's and I believe that it was Joe Friel that invented this concept that you have a workout like an endurance workout where both halves of the workout are roughly the same. You look at the power to heart rate ratio at the first half, you look at the power to heart rate ratio of the second half, and then the percent difference, we track that. So if you're in Training Peaks, it's in every workout that has heart rate and power, you'll actually see that metric in Training Peaks. And so if you're at the beginning of your base period and you go out do a 2-hour ride, there could be, 5% difference in your first ratio in the first half to the ratio of power to heart in the second, right? But if you're aerobically fit, that percentage keeps coming down, and sometimes it can even go negative, which is actually a pretty good thing. So what did he do for this? So we had this blue line is flat as can be. So that means that the first half, the power to heart rate ratio here was pretty much the same as the power to heart rate ratio here. And all of this data points to basically the idea that there was no cardiac drift. We had 1% cardiac drift, right? So through time, if you go out and do a 2-hour ride, you start out, say you're zone 2, your heart rate's, 120. Your power stays the same, but your heart rate, because of fatigue, dehydration, whatever, it might be up into the 130s when you finish. That's typical cardiac drift. That's what we expect to see. You really dramatically see it in intervals. So what do we see here? We see no cardiac drift, meaning that in this race, on this day, all systems were go, is that he is super aerobically, cardiovascularly fit. And that is the benefit of a great base training program. So this gentleman was with me for the entire base season. We have 4 good months in him, and his aerobic fitness is showing. And that his heart rate was steady all the way through, and his power was steady all the way through. They didn't split or diverge. They stayed the same, which is, for me as a coach, that makes my heart smile. Okay, so let's go to the ride itself. I usually look at this data last. I don't really jump into this data. Hour and 15 minutes, which is a brutal 32-mile race, which is basically all out hard as you can go. 674 feet of climbing, very not much climbing. Variability index, VI, of 1.1. This just simply means, that's a longer discussion I can go into later. IF, here's where we really get into Andy Coggin's intensity factor. So the idea is that if you go and do your threshold for 60 minutes for 1 hour and you hold your threshold, that workout gets a rating of 1. Okay, if you go out for 1 hour and it's easy, that could be a workout of 0.6. So now he is going over 1. He's 1.04, meaning that he is all out. He is on the limit, and he's digging as hard as he can go. And that's a great concept by Andy Coggin. Normalized power, another great concept by Andy Coggin. Uh, TSS 137. Average heart rate 181, average cadence 80, average speed 25.4. Now, this is really important. In base training, it's really super hard to get that leg speed going at speeds that you're going to be racing at. So that's why these training circuit races, training crits are so important, because it's the poor man's moto pacing, basically. So the professionals, what are they going to do? They're going to be moto pacing about behind cars, just to get those legs up, to get used to making watts at 25 miles an hour, at 27 miles an hour, at 30 miles an hour. And so these crits are fantastic in that regard. Okay, so basically, what does that data down there tell me? It was brutal. Now, here's another um, uh, workout chart that I look at a lot. It's matches. And so I can't show the chart because it would show all of his data, numbers, exact numbers. But basically, he burned 72 matches. And we have different types of matches. We have small matches that you burn. We have medium-sized matches that you burn. Then we have the all-out matches that we can burn. And so he did 72 matches. And so right now, for the racers that are racing with power that I have, he has the record of matches burned in a race. So the previous record was 55 from the Valley of the Sun crit. But this is 72. So meaning he dug as hard as he could for at least a second, probably 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 72 times. So this athlete, he showed up. He was in a good mood this day, because you have to be in a good mood to be able to to burn that many matches in a crit race. All right. The other things I look at, this is the crit smile. This is your power data. This is zone 1. This is all out, right? And we have zone 2, zone 3. Here's threshold. Here's VO2. And then this is just all out, right? This is the typical smiley face of the crit. And then I look at his time and zones for his heart rate data. And here we have his threshold. Most of his heart rate was in tempo or zone 3. All right, guys, I hope that was interesting. That's kind of how I have a few more charts that I look at, but I can't give all my secrets away. But so I hope that was enlightening. It's race data is great data to look at. Hey, my contact information is below. Reach out to me. Would love to talk to you. You want to talk about your race data? You want to talk about coaching? You want to talk about your event specific demands? I'm all there, right? Just thinking about event specific demands, that repeatability, that ability to burn 72 matches all out. That is what we call repeatability. Performance wins on race day. Not the highest FTP or the watts per kilogram. It's performance. So the person who performs the best. Repeatability is crucial to that performance. Crucial to wins, especially in a crit, because you have to go as hard as you can over and over and over and over again. And we're going to keep training. We're going to keep digging, and we're going to work on his repeatability, his FTP, his fatigue resistance. We're going to work on, working on his ability to burn matches and to charge faster above threshold, right? We're going to work on all that. So, hey, reach out to me. Would love to talk to you.